Morning, everyone. Now we have a quorum, we can start the meeting. Good to see you here, Councillor Skinner. So just housekeeping, be aware that this is being live streamed and we have news media in the room. I've got apologies this morning from Anika Young, our iwi representative. And those are the only apologies I've got. I haven't heard from Kahu. I know he was in Wellington yesterday. So we will open the meeting with Karakia.
Thank you through the chair. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki wahu, tuia te here tangata, koronga te pau, koronga te ao, humie, huie, tai ki e.
Thank you for that. So as I said, we've got apologies from Anika Young. Would someone like to move? They be accepted. Moved Councillor Dowler, seconded Councillor Skinner. All those in favour?
She's away.
Don't know. I'm going to have a discussion with your manager about it after the meeting.
This has been
1 out of 5.
She's second. Okay, cheers. I'll support the.
Right. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, so we've got confirmation of business. It's as per the reports. Any declarations of interest? No. Confirmation of minutes. And I think it's the 20th of September. We've got the open minutes and then the confidential minutes. Oh yeah, it should. Yeah, you've got. Oh yeah, there is one error in the minutes. They're called our manager, Mr. Nathan, and it should have been Mr. Clark. So there's one, and that's in paragraph 6. So we'll make that one correction. Oh, here's Kahu. Good morning. Kia ora. So with that one amendment on page 6, would someone like to move that the open minutes be a true and correct record? Move Councillor Skinner, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And then we've got the confidential minutes of the same day. Move.
Yeah, we do that under confidence.
We do it in the open.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a different system here. That's all right. And I'll just welcome Philip Wilson's on Zoom, and I'm sure Talent will be as well. Morning, Philip. I can see you.
Talent's not on board yet?
Not yet. No, but he shouldn't be far away. He did indicate he would, and he indicated he was going to attend in person our first meeting next year, which I hope to do at Best Island, at Bell's Island. So we'll have to look at the tides for that, if you could, Brad. Right, so we'll go to Mr. Clark for the report.
Thank you through the chair. The first report is the General Manager's Update Report. So on the whole, NRSBU, or the Regional Sewerage Business Unit, has been running well. We did have one failure in our biosolids pipe during the period. There was a corrosion from the outside in. We're not quite sure why that occurred. That particular piece of the pipe does run under the estuary, and there was a rock beside it. So we think that maybe when it was put in, it scored the protective coating on the pipe. There is a plan. That pipe was installed in 1996. There's a plan to start rehabilitating or replacing that pipe over the next few years. The failure history on that pipe has not been high. So this is the first one in quite some time that we've had. So it's, we are not overly concerned, but we do note that pipe is coming toward the end of its life. So any questions on that? Happy to.
Sorry, Mr. Which pipe?
So the biosolids pipe, that's the pipe that runs from Bell Island and it pumps biosolids across to Motorola Rabbit Island.
So spraying it. Cool.
So it runs under the estuary.
Correct, yeah. We had 5 odour notifications for the period, all from the biosolids disposal facility and the application. And the most significant thing this period is that our year-to-date income is significantly down compared to where we budgeted. And that's on the back of some lower loading results that we've been billing on. So we've been digging in to try and understand what that is, and we're not quite sure yet, but it appears that there is there's potentially some change in the way the sampling or the way the analysis is done, because we don't believe that the change in the results is able to be observed from a change in the catchments. So we're trying to understand that further. At the present time, we haven't got to a clear resolution of that.
So in terms of that, just a comment from me, my understanding is that means the two customers, being the two councils that are shareholders, will pay less, but at the end of the year, they receive less back. Would that be, Andrew, would you like to comment on that, or is it similar to that?
The charge for flows and loads are recovering, the actual flows and loads are used to recover the O&M costs. And so what happens at year end, so during the year we charge an interim charge, and based on budget and on the prior year flows and loads. And then in the end of the year, we rerun the model with the actuals, flows and loads, and the actual costs. So if actual costs are exactly the same as budget, then there will be a charge to the customers as customers to catch up. But it's likely that, so that will be spread across all the customers on the annual flows and loads basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
As part of our process of, the inverted commas wash up at the end of the year. So if you'd pay less during the year in this operational charge, then there might be a bigger bill at the end of the year to compensate. So
the key point for me is to make sure that our customers are informed so that they know and there's no surprises, because I know what Philip will say to me if there is a surprise at the end.
Okay. We've also had a look at other risks as we've, the board member Taylor was asking for in past. We've talked about the conveyancing system. One of our risks there is obviously the ongoing inflow and infiltration, how much flow we get, and how much additional upgrading into pipes we need, and what that time frame is. And similarly, if we get more of that, then how does the Bell Island treatment plant accommodate that flow and discharge it in particular? So those things are risks that we're always looking at as we go forward, trying to understand what that is, working with our council, the councils in particular, because they're the bulk of the flow coming to the facility. Odour is another risk for us. I mean, we do have a number of odour notifications coming from the biocides application facility. So from a NRSBU perspective, it's something that we need to be keeping a close eye on and trying to mitigate as best we can. We don't have a clear strategy for mitigating right at the moment. The long-term strategy is to change the treatment process to an anaerobic digestion and to allow us to dewater stuff to create other avenues. But that's in the latter part of the activity management plan and latter part of the 10-year plan. And the other one that we looked at, and we still got some work to do, is looking at sea level rise. We continue to watch coastal erosion and how that affects Bell Island or Mothera Rabbit Island. And a lot of our risks around the Bell Island are mitigated by the fact that Mothera Rabbit Island is in front of us and it absorbs the wave energy from the ocean. So the eastern end of Mothera Rabbit Island is actually accreting, so it's getting longer back towards Tahuna. And as long as that stays in place, then the bulk of the energy is removed from any waves, and it protects Bell Island. So sea level rise itself is the principal concern under that scenario. And if you look at all the modelling that NCC and TDC have done, then Bell Island is still able to be used notionally for a facility for quite a long time, just based on sea level rise and storm surge. Access to Bell Island would be difficult, and there'd be other issues in and around that from infrastructure getting wastewater to Bell Island. But at the present time, the height of the ponds and the treatment processes on Bell Island are sufficiently high that you could continue to use it. So,
Kahu, you've got a question?
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for my tardiness as well, for getting in a little bit late. I guess that explains why, because there was a number. I did have a question about the prediction of the use of the island itself is through to 2100. I don't know what do we even call that? It's the 22nd century, I guess.
Yep.
So that sort of explains that for me. Can I just go back one? I just need to get a little bit better understanding. We've got, I mean, as an organisation, Andrew's probably able to answer for me just in terms of our loading and flows. We've got quite a well-established model in terms of that predictive, the forecasting in terms of what's gone on in the past. Just historically, what is it that's quite significantly different that from the past applications? And I accept that the predictive model will always change. You'll be dynamic enough to be able to change it as the requirements need. What is the, like in real world speak, what is it that has left us where we are at the moment with a budgeted, a forecasted, a formula that's been used and where we are at the moment?
So in the report on there's some graphs later on in the finance section.
Yeah, saw those.
8.2. So basically what's happened is the flows are essentially what we were projecting, or they're close to what we're projecting, but the loads for the first 2 or 3 months have been significantly lower than we expected. Low enough to make me question whether the data is correct. So I would expect COD and BOD and other data associated with wastewater to be within certain parameters, and it's below this area, the parameters that I expect. Hence why we're digging in very carefully to see what, if anything, is going on, whether it's systemic with our processes or whether it's actually changes in the network.
So I guess after you've been able to dig into that, and you'll come back and you might be able to have an explanation or an adjustment of where we're at.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be able to go back and change the invoicing, because the way that but what we'd be able to do is say what we think was the cause of that change, and then obviously at the end of the year, then there would be this wash up process which would compensate from the NRSBU finances perspective. And obviously the biggest risk that we have is the distribution of the costs correct. So if, as an example, our sampling or the issue that was there, I mean, I'm assuming there's some systemic issue, but if that issue was attributed more to one customer than another, then it might skew where the costs for the business unit sat when we did the wash up at the end of the year, and that wouldn't necessarily be fair to that particular customer or another customer. So that's an area we've got to be focused on if this is a systemic issue that we need to resolve.
Yeah, and I guess that just for the security, and this is really what Kit was pointing towards, the making sure that our methodology of how we're applying those formulas for the budgets is to prevent that surprise when the wash up happens.
Yeah, we will definitely keep our customers and the joint committee abreast of what's going on. For me, it is somewhat of a surprise that this is different. It's not expected, and hence the amount of effort we're putting into it. Yeah. So, Philip's got a question.
Philip, you've got a question? Let's see if it works.
Yep. I'm interested in your analysis. You're looking at the average loads, and is that you're looking at the loads as measured going into Bell Island, or is this the totalized loads from each of the individual contributors? And are you seeing it consistently low on all of the contributors individually? And how does that relate to what you're experiencing at Bell Island? Because it kind of, from your comments, you're saying, well, it doesn't look like Bell Island is experiencing lower loads because the treatment operation is operating as though the loads are higher. Is that correct? So there's several parts to that, but I'll leave you to answer.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't have off the top of my head an answer for whether or not we've got one or other contributors at the present time. That's something we're still working on. What we've done is we've got average numbers and trying to compare to average numbers to see whether our results were appropriate year on year, and they are considerably lower than our previous experience results from load year on year. So that's definitely indicating some difference that we wouldn't expect. And the data isn't back yet for the details in and around each customer. So that'll come. That's something I'll have to come back to you or the joint committee on. But I can direct you more to Brad, who's been doing that work if you've got more detailed question.
If you mind a supplementary comment in relation to that, I haven't looked at the data for Nelson Pine, but I do know that we have not been operating as full production as normal for a chunk of the time that you're looking at, and so that may be influencing some of the results from. So through us,
we had a similar. We know that Alliance Group were not working for 2 of the months, so that's one of the reasons that we are, we're having to dig in further and see whether or not it's real or whether it's actual. If NPI and other industries within the region are all on low production, then maybe it's a real answer. But if they are, if they're not, then it's not. So there's more work for me to do, or for us to do, to actually determine whether that is different. If both yourself and NPI and Alliance were on low, production, then it would affect our inflow load data.
When you do get some sort of an answer, it will be good. You don't have to wait to a meeting to share it. You can share it by email, because I think that will be useful for both our industrial customers and the 2 council customers. So when you come to some conclusion, if you can share it by email, I think that will be useful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Brett.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to add to what Nathan was saying, we are seeing those loading numbers return to more normalised figures. Now, not included as reporters out of the period. It may have just simply been related to downturn in industry. There are a bundle of possible contributing factors which we are looking into, so we'll keep you abreast of that.
All right. Well, when you come to some conclusion, if you could let us know by email, I think that would be useful.
Right. Yeah. On the positive side of the economics, I think we're within $23,000 of cost out of our year to date on the budget. The cost side. So income might be down, but budget control on costs is pretty good. So we're pretty happy there. I think the maintenance contract was slightly over, but there's other savings that have compensated. So we're very close to budget there. In terms of projects, there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the big ones that's great to have done is that we've got all of the slip material from the August 22 slips has now been applied and put over top of the sea defence bund on the back of Bell Island. So that's all largely complete. We've now just got to make sure that the grass grows on it and the plantings are done, and then we'll have that defence in place. So that's it's very nice to have. The workshop has been completed. I believe that there's, I don't know whether the code of compliance has been achieved. It hasn't, so we're not in it yet, which is frustrating. And there's been a bunch of repair works done to the causeway, and we've got the sludge tank now installed and just about to be used. So there's a bunch of good stuff happening from a projects and a development and renewals perspective. As I said, finance section, we're under budget significantly compared to where we were intending to be, principally around income. So I can take questions on that if anybody wants.
I think we've already explored that, so we'll see what transpires.
Yeah, so overall, things are going well from a treatment process perspective. There's been a few minor incidents or minor upsets with the ponds, but nothing of any substance. And we're in good position. So the only thing of substance is that financial, issue there.
All right. So any other questions of the manager or Mr. Nixon in relation to this report? Kahu?
Good, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick one out of interest. Is there a correlation between the surplus and the electricity account? Is that related to the fact of flows and
we would expect
more consumption that we?
There's 2 separate elements in electricity. Yes, if we are getting less load, we'll use less electricity. We also, summertime, we can apply more load to our ponds, and so therefore we'd use less electricity. And in wintertime, we're generally loading up the mechanical plant, so we use more. So we would have expected this to have been slightly higher because it's the winter period. So it does correlate with a lower load. So
Okay, so no other questions?
No.
So we've got a resolution to receive the report.
Yep.
Have I got a mover? Councillor Skinner, seconded Councillor Pakipaki. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. That's the first report, and then we have another report. All right, in relation to the memorandum of understanding, starting on page 24.
yeah, through the chair, this report is basically a report outlining that we'd like to renew the memorandum of understanding for NRSBU for a period that the current memorandum of understanding comes to an end in, I can't specifically, 30th of June 2025, and we'd like to renew it. We looked at different options for renewal. Given that local water's done well, is not defined what's going to happen in the region yet. We thought it was important to be able to have that renewal done for a sufficient period of time that any changes that would be made could be implemented within that time. So we've recommended a 5-year period. In the event that those changes are made a lot faster, by mutual agreement, the two councils can dissolve the MOU and go to whatever other option they want. So there's no adverse effect of renewing it for a longer period. And it means that we don't have to try to renew it again in the future if it didn't get, those other changes didn't happen in time. So very simple in that respect, and more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, I thought the report was quite pragmatic. This is nice and simple. But up to 5 years gives us time to get it done. If you only did it for 2, you could get caught out. And when you have a look at what local water's done well, our structure doesn't necessarily fit within that from what I've seen, but it isn't finalised yet. So to me, renewing it for 5 years makes sense. Has any other members got a comment in relation to that? Right. So I've got it moved, Councillor Dowler, seconded Councillor Skinner. No other discussion? That shows that it's got to be a very pragmatic report. So I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. That has to go to the councils, doesn't it, for a final sign-off?
It does, yes.
Yep. So that makes sense. So I'll move over a page. And then we've got
Business plan.
Yep, business plan.
But for the chair, in August we brought the draft business plan to the NRSBU for essentially for approval for sending it to the councils for feedback and for review. We received no specific feedback from either council when they heard the report, but we received feedback from the officers of NCC and TDC in relation to the report. That feedback basically requested that we try to maintain the business plan to the second year of the activity management plan to be the same. What that basically meant is if we took that into account, we would remove an additional 350,000 that had requested for some stormwater activities on Rabbit Island. We went and looked at our budgets and tried to understand where we could shift things around, rejig our work program, and identified that we think that we can rejig the work program sufficiently to not need that. It will mean some of the things are slowed down, but and so we've adjusted the business plan to remove that additional 350,000. So we're now basically saying, well, we recommend adopting the final business plan, which is essentially the same as what the activity management plan was, subject to the addition of inflationary, adjustments. And that's essentially, again, pretty simple in that respect. The biggest concern that might be, or the negative, is that there might be some slowdown in some of the activities that otherwise would have been done because if we had the extra 350,000 capex. The specific area we're looking to slow down is the increase in the application of wastewater to land on Bell Island. So there's some money allowed for funding for the forest area, and we'd basically divert some of that funding for this year into the stormwater activities for Rabbit Island instead.
So questions of Mr. Clark in relation to this? All I comment I would make is when I look around local government in New Zealand, everybody's under financial pressure. All budgets are tight, right across the country from what I see. And a great example is the fact that councils aren't being funded for their roading to the same level as from NZTA as we all asked for. And that just will have an impact going forward. And it certainly causes some angst at our council. So I think this is pretty normal. Mr. Kirby, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that when both councils receive this, I'll talk from Tasman's perspective, that we've still got to go through the annual plan process. So we may actually come back to the NRSP and say, listen, guys, we can't afford all of this. We need to cut further. So even though we've received it and we're getting initial feedback at this point, I think the financial constraints may result in another cut or attention.
That's an interesting point. I'll go to Mr. Robertus in a moment. There's an article this morning about how we maintain our infrastructure in New Zealand that Andrew pointed to me to read the full report, and I saw it on Stuff this morning, which actually says public infrastructure isn't being maintained as well as we might do. So, budget constraints, but they can come back and bite you. Alex.
2 points. The first one is I agree with Richard, and thank you to Richard for making that point. But I also want to say thank you to Nathan and his team, because they took the comments from Richard and I very seriously, and I genuinely want to say thank you for listening to those and coming to the party, so to speak. So thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sure first year after the long-term plan will be tough for all councils around the country. We've already seen Wellington end up with an observer because of changes they made within months. And the interesting bit, the observer comes as our former CEO from Tasman District Council. So no questions. The only change is moving 350,000. And if you look at our total budget, that's not a huge amount in place. So again, have I got a mover? Councillor Pakapaka, you happy to move?
I'll move that. I just wanted to, sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to move that, but I just wanted to get a picture from Alec again, and I guess with that, the information that was on that article, really suggesting in terms of the business of council that there are a lot of practical business things that the requirements that the councils are having to do in their own regions, and a refocus or just to focus the lens in terms of what we're actually required and in terms of the physical services needs to have more of a focus than some of the politically driven sort of like nice to have things, but this is really a must have in terms of what councils need to deliver to their ratepayers. So with that in mind, if we have to shift stuff around, I'm quite in favour of, if the councils need to find money to make sure that we don't have any hiccups, and also we have a smooth service, that people don't even know that, that we exist, then we're doing our job. So under that umbrella, I'm quite prepared to move this.
You've got no comment?
No comment. I agree.
All right, so I've got moved.
Yeah, you're allowed to say I agree.
Yeah. In other words, it's doing three waters and roading. That's our core business of councils. And for us, wastewater, if people flush the toilet, it goes away, and we don't have overspills and we don't have odor problems, we're doing our job. That's what it comes down to.
Miss sports fields.
Oh, that's part of it too. Don't worry. Anyway, I've got a seconder from Councillor Dowler. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. So I think the next one is we have to move into confidence, and that's because it's got financial implications. So Moved councillor Skinner, seconded councillor Paki. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we'll just have to wait